They refer to him as the Black Pope, devoid of a throne, a crown, or any grand blessings preceding the. Amidst the throngs, numerous individuals hold the conviction that his influence surpasses that of the recognized pontiff within the confines of the tiniest independent city-state. A concealed influence resides, an enduring framework protected by ages of customs and steadfast promises. An eerie stillness surrounds us. Choices that might change the course of empires or even the events of our past are not broadcasted on screens, but softly spoken through the echoes of time etched in stone. Have you ever pondered the true power dynamics within the Vatican and the reasons behind them? Individuals hold a greater apprehension towards the title of superior general than they do for the Pope. This tale unfolds without a champion basking in the limelight, merely silhouettes shifting in the background. For ages, the world has observed the majestic white throne of the Vatican, the residence of the Catholic Pope, regarded by countless individuals as the embodiment of divine authority. To the devoted, he serves as a guiding light, a protector of authenticity and righteousness. Yet few are aware that merely a few steps away from that throne lies an unassuming structure devoid of grandeur, yet within it resides a force that many hold in reverence, inaccessible. That authority is held by the highest leader, the ultimate commander. Of the Jesuit order, or Jesuit, for centuries, he has remained unseen. Before the audience like the Pope, he offers no blessings and conducts no grand ceremonies, provides no festive speeches in St. Peter's Square. Yet based on records, whispers, and even subtle hints, in ancient and overlooked chronicles, he might just be the one genuinely orchestrating the events. The influence held by the Vatican is not accidental. It draws in politicians, generals, and even cardinals alike. Address him with a title that evokes both respect and unease. The Dark Pontiff. The designation does not, has emerged not merely from the black robes of the Jesuits, but from the enigmatic influence he wields. It exerts a quiet influence, unseen yet potent enough to mold the ethereal glow of countless souls. His essence, or to be more exact, his enigmatic disappearance has quietly ignited a question that lingers in the shadows, one that remains unspoken among those who ponder it. Who truly wields influence within the Vatican, and what has shaped this small nation? Just a small area, hardly a square kilometer, has had a significant impact on conflicts and political powers, and the destiny of lands over the ages. A tale regarding the formal. The narrative feels incomplete, with pages lost, documents disappeared, and choices made that raise questions, crafted without any indication of the signatory, shrouded in a haze of ambiguity. Even the Jesuits seem calm, yet they are anything but easy to overlook. Is the Black Pope just a spiritual leader, or does he play a role in something more significant? An intricate web of influence and authority that remains largely enigmatic to humanity. This evening, as you prepare for rest, let the soothing tales of the past guide you beyond the weighty veil of time, the beginnings of the Jesuit order, and revealing the concealed aspects of almost 5 centuries of hidden truths that were never covered in your education, particularly regarding the Vatican. In a realm of spiritual significance, the Jesuits emerge as the distinguished elite, not solely due to their sharp intellect or unwavering resolve, dedication, yet due to their serene and unwavering commitment. The Society of Jesus, commonly referred to as the Jesuit order, was established in 1540 amidst the tumultuous period of the Protestant Reformation. Intellectuals such as Martin Luther questioned the power of the Catholic Church, prompting the Vatican to recognize the necessity for change. More influential than belief, a group that would engage not through prayers, but with tactics, understanding, and, if needed, secretive measures were initiated by Ignatius of Loyola, who established the Jesuits. A Spanish knight, injured in combat, persevered through his lengthy recovery, without surrendering his resolve. He merely exchanged his sword for scripture, even as he departed from the battlefield. Despite the challenges he faced, he held on to the essence of a warrior and established a religious order, structured like a battalion, featuring hierarchies, directives, and a sense of order. The Jesuit priests, often misunderstood, embody a form of absolute obedience that contrasts sharply with the image of quiet, cloistered monks. They do not retreat into monasteries, but rather engage actively with the world around them. They venture into the world, exploring languages, mastering the sciences, and offering counsel to rulers, and create learning connections that span from Europe to Asia. They are champions in the realm of thought, influencers, advocates, planners. They approach distant realms not through force, but with an even greater force of mind, and complete with their unwavering commitment. The Jesuits swiftly emerged as the intellectual backbone of the Catholic Church, founding numerous, prestigious institutions globally, nurturing not only the devoted, but also the privileged. Numerous students would eventually rise to become influential figures in politics and military leadership. At times, adversaries hidden beneath their plain dark garments possessed intellects honed to a fine edge. The edges that evoked respect also stirred trepidation, their promise transcending mere words to the divine, yet particularly to the highest authority, the sole individual endowed with power over the whole Jesuit order, even surpassing the authority of the Pope. Once a member takes their oath, is no longer just one person, yet intertwined within a hidden system functioning quietly and with calmly unfolding secrets. The Jesuits were not merely sharing their beliefs, they were covert operations, shifting power dynamics, and influencing international relations. Perhaps it may seem like an exaggeration, but if that's the case, one must wonder why over 80 countries have taken the step to expel them at various times, moments in the past from France, Spain, and Portugal. In China, entire governments perceived them as a concealed danger. The Jesuits departed without a trace, forces in the background, yet their impact lingered. They may not have seized territory, but they captured hearts and minds. Hearts and minds. They didn't govern with power. They led through concepts, and, at times, concepts can pose a greater threat than weapons at the heart of this framework. The superior general quietly broadens his connections while mentoring newcomers, warriors leading a vast realm without a guide, without limits, yet felt in every corner. It was during that time that the term Black Pope started to emerge, not in public addresses but in confidential discussions among global leaders, captured in secure records and within inquiries that often lingered without resolution within various faith-based groups. A leader represents an emblem, not necessarily the individual crafting strategic choices, but rather existing within the superior general of the Jesuit order embodies more than mere symbolism. He wields genuine authority, serving as the core of its leadership structure, a worldwide governing system, which is the reason for his title as the Black Pope, not due to any other reason. He stands in opposition to the White Pope, yet his influence resides in a different dimension of authority, concealed, unobserved, and nearly unreachable. The designation of supreme leader. It's not just a recent creation stemming from conspiracy theories. It's a genuine reality, acknowledged within the framework of the Jesuits. It has been in existence for almost throughout the ages. What piques the interest of scholars and stirs apprehension among those in power is the proximity of events, the complete dominance this position possesses. In contrast to cardinals or bishops in Oahu, the superior general does not require approval from the Vatican to make a move regarding the Pope. Individuals broaden their reach or initiate what are referred to as unique pastoral initiatives, missions found within internal Jesuit documents. His directives are seen as the authoritative voice of the level of obedience exhibited by his subordinates is so profound that many draw comparisons to a military leader from a bygone age. The structure where he conducts his affairs is referred to as the General Curia of Idea, is located close to the Vatican, yet it functions autonomously from the papal authority. It operates as a central hub for global strategy, gathering and processing various reports from Jesuit branches across the globe, examining geopolitical circumstances, organizing efforts for educational outreach, and based on certain documented information, the operations of political influence in significant countries are truly noteworthy, especially considering that the Superior General is not chosen through an election, public, and doesn't seek acknowledgement from Catholics around the globe. He is selected internally by a close-knit group, prominent Jesuit clergy members whose identities and deeds seldom come to light. It's not surprising that individuals start to question whether this is truly a democratic situation, an organized framework within faith, or a concealed authority, where choices are consistently determined by an unseen group. As noted by certain scholars, consider the Superior General to be the spectral counselor to the Pope due to numerous. Throughout the ages, many popes have either been members of the Jesuit order or have been significantly shaped by Jesuit ideals. Establishments as a solitary figure bestows his blessings upon the gathering from the upper balcony of St. Peter's. Another is in the Curia Generalia, quietly examining reports from Africa. Asia and Latin America are strategizing their next global maneuver with meticulous precision, subtle and unobtrusive. The genuine reach of that influence is challenging to pinpoint without a guide, official statistics, or a transparent budget. Only fragmented hints remain. Historical evidence indicates that the Superior General does not solely oversee the Jesuit order, arrange the connections that impact from prestigious institutions and philanthropic organizations, the beginnings to secretive gatherings where global strategies are crafted in the background of the Jesuits, along with the enigmatic figure often referred to as the Black Pope, are always lurking in the background, and that's what adds to the intrigue. Individuals often feel a sense of discomfort when considering that the most significant influence is not always visible. It is the unseen force that governs all. Shortly after their establishment, the Jesuits embarked on a path that was rarely taken by religious orders throughout the ages, boldly envisioned their presence at the core of non-religious authority in Europe, not through force, but through persuasion, as other religious groups withdrew. In serene reflection, the Jesuits proceeded into regal chambers and scholarly halls and hidden rooms, the exact locations where choices were crafted that would influence the existence of countless individuals without the necessity of crowns, as they had perfected the skill of swaying those who were already in position. The 16th and 17th centuries unfolded as a period marked by conflicts driven by faith and a landscape stained with blood. Connections formed between religious institutions and noble families during that tumultuous period, including the role of the Jesuits, arose as informal counselors, spiritual mentors, and trusted confidants of royalty, possessing an innate understanding what to express and the appropriate timing. In France, Jesuit priests not only provided education, they also took on the role of spiritual guides for the members of the Bourbon family, one of the continent's most influential dynasties. They understood the art of transforming prayers into tools of administration and how to convert sacred texts into the vernacular of the intricate relationships in Spain and Portugal, where the authority of the monarchy was closely intertwined with the Jesuits of the Catholic faith, emerged as the spiritual architects behind overseas empires. As Spanish vessels embarked on their quest for riches, Jesuit missionaries subtly disseminated their beliefs throughout the newly discovered lands, at times taking the initiative, at others trailing behind the group, yet consistently remaining the final one to depart for Austria, Poland, and even Russia, the Jesuits played a role beyond that of mere missionaries. They were instrumental in shaping the future leaders of society, royalty, aristocrats, and even non-Christian elites in the realms of thought, governance, and religious studies. They molded intellects prior to ascending the throne, embedding Jesuit philosophy where it was most impactful, at the very foundation of authority. And when direct communication with monarchs was not possible, they sought alternative routes, becoming trusted advisors, confidants, or personal instructors for successors who didn't require royal status. They merely had to remain seated alongside those destined to transform. That solitary fact was sufficient to stir unease in the hushed corridors of power. Murmurs began to circulate. When a monarch utters a word, it is likely to reach your ears. The Jesuit's voice resonates softly from behind the curtain, weaving through a sprawling tapestry of educational institutions. The Jesuits established not only churches and training centers, but also fostered a distinguished educational framework that nurtured and chose a whole era of intellectuals devoted to their perspectives, youngsters nurtured within. The influence of Jesuit leadership evolved into roles such as bishops, generals, and ministers. Individuals who stepped into the realm of influence has been nurtured by concepts sown in the past. This ascent was not. The incident was intentional, carefully planned, as the Jesuits recognized that if you to transform the world, begin with the origin of thoughts and the concept sown at the perfect time to journey beyond the reach of any rule or force throughout the ages. This serene essence became a source of irritation for numerous governments. Certain monarchs prohibited them, while some judicial systems, they were driven away, yet they returned time and again. For the ideas they had sown in the hearts of the young had already begun to flourish, and thus, when the inquiry emerged regarding who truly governs the dynamics of Europe, the solution was not always discovered in the seat of power, but rather within the quiet confines of this library, where a Jesuit pondered, quietly holding a book, not uttering a word, as his thoughts resonated in the stillness. Throughout the ages, the gatherings of monarchs have been significant, yet only a handful of spiritual institutions have reached such prominence. Banished from over 80 nations and regions, yet managed to endure, came back even more resilient, as if they had never faced challenges. The Jesuits stand out as a unique case in this narrative. The unique situation has prompted numerous scholars to inquire whether they were simply a religious organization or an intricate web of power that nations had to navigate during the 1700s defined an atmosphere of unease permeated the royal courts of Europe as they began to perceive something lurking beneath the surface, influence gradually infiltrating various sectors, such as governance, learning, and even the armed forces. There was an absence of rebellions without conflict, merely existence, unwavering, orderly, and almost unachievable. In 1759, under the guidance of the authorities, King Joseph I of Portugal was removed. The influential Prime Minister Sebastião de Pombal commanded the removal of everyone, Jesuit priests, not due to their preaching of heresy, nor because of any religious conflict. However, they had become exceptionally adept at molding education. In turn, the thoughts of the youthful aristocracy, shaped by the teachings of the Jesuits, no longer accepted the authority of the crown without scrutiny. They began to challenge power and reflect on their beliefs. In 1700, there were instances where individuals acted on their own accord, prioritizing their beliefs over the decrees of the monarchy. During the reign of King Louis XV in France, the Jesuits faced accusations of misconduct, gradually moved away from their religious affiliations, and found themselves increasingly excluded from various roles within the government, leading to the closure of their educational institutions. Assets taken without a clear indication of any wrongdoing. The motivation seemed unclear, as if the monarchy sensed an unnamed threat that was undeniably tangible. particularly in Spain and Naples. In 17, under significant pressure, Palmer, and eventually the Vatican took action. From European powers, Pope Clement I issued the decree for dissolution of the Society of Jesus, officially disbanding the Jesuits globally, was intended to be a significant event. It marked a conclusion, yet the peculiar journey commenced from that point. There were no uprisings. No, without any response. The Jesuits vanished as though they had anticipated it in various nations. There was no resistance, just a seamless transition. Clad in their garments, they descended into the depths, persistently imparting knowledge and nurturing fresh minds under various identities. Some libraries brimming with strategic knowledge were not destroyed, while others were concealed by aristocratic lineages, aware that the Jesuits might face prohibition, yet the concepts, they sowed seeds that would endure beyond any royal command. And then, in under 4 decades, in the year 1810, Pope Pius fully reinstated the Jesuits. Not due to the absolution of their history, but owing to the Vatican, came to an important understanding during a time marked by increasing secular views and opposition to religious authority. No one could advocate for the beliefs more compellingly than the Jesuits. The genuine inquiry is how an entity could be denounced throughout Europe to endure and emerge more resilient. Was there an unseen power safeguarding them? Or had they established a framework so intricately intertwined with the scholarly community and the governing powers? Global connections rendered it unaffected by superficial political issues. Mass expulsion did not occur. They became more elusive, making them difficult to follow. No longer anchored to specific monasteries, they transformed into a flexible and responsive presence, prepared for any change in governance for a realm defined by allegiance and wisdom. At the forefront of that empire, the Black Pope persisted in giving orders in quiet that transcends the confines of Vatican regulations. Untouched by the limits of nations, he stands as the sole figure in the annals of Catholic leadership to oversee a worldwide network that was prohibited, yet never shattered. There's an oddity surrounding. In the shadows, the most enigmatic powers seldom confront one another openly. They operate in silence, quiet as 2 hidden streams, coursing under an uncharted metropolis. The Jesuits and Freemasonry are 2 such currents, one shrouded in spiritual fervor, the other steeped in antiquity. Mystical insights have significantly influenced worldly authority in deep and meaningful manners, and yet it's often ambiguous whether they are adversaries or mere manifestations of a singular power. At first glance, the Vatican has consistently denounced Freemasonry, branding it as heretical. Several papal decrees have prohibited actions deemed atheistic and morally relativistic. Catholics are discouraged from participating, as it is seen as a betrayal of their beliefs. While Freemasonry is based on principles of reason and science, humanism has frequently pointed out the Church's outdated and oppressive nature, antagonistic towards independent thinking. Yet a more profound contradiction persists within both factions. Both are characterized by a high level of organization, extend across the world, and are frequently encountered, intersecting hubs of governance, wealth, and defense. This convergence prompts intriguing inquiries arise. Are they competitors, or merely different extensions of a singular origin? Unseen force. Some chroniclers, and quite a number have seasoned. There are theories that point to a shadowy connection between the Jesuits and the Freemasons, particularly in the later years. The period of the 18th and early 19th centuries marked a time when monarchies started to fall apart, leading to a wave of revolutions spread across nations, and the landscape of influence was undergoing transformation. There existed soft murmurs of exiled Jesuits, cast out during their suppression, gently converged, The arrival of Masonic lodges introduced a wealth of insider knowledge and a level of organizational precision that was precisely what Freemasonry required. To broaden its influence throughout Europe and the New World, both factions exhibit unsettling similarities, shared characteristics, hidden practices, organized systems, symbolic communication, and most importantly, an oath of steadfast allegiance to the Brotherhood. These similarities are far too exact to overlook as mere chance. A scholar once noted, if the Jesuits emerged from the illumination of belief, then Freemasonry came into existence through logic. Yet, they both recognize that true strength has always been rooted in deeper, often unspoken, truths illuminating the public sphere. One of the most captivating focal points emerged in post-revolutionary France, particularly within its churches, were obliterated, and religious leaders either escaped or surrendered. The Jesuits subtly returned to the realm of intellectual discourse, many that were significantly shaped by Masonic beliefs. There exists some indirect evidence pointing to the involvement of Jesuit priests served as consultants within specific clandestine organizations associated with Freemasonry, particularly in initiatives aimed at education and social change, while never openly recognizing the connections among individuals. The complexities within these ambiguous areas have intrigued scholars for ages, as there is no formal record to validate them. Any partnership the Vatican refutes, Freemasonry remains, quiet yet in the realm of historical inquiry. The absence of sound from both parties can often speak volumes. Beyond any allegations, it's crucial to keep in mind that Freemasonry is not a cohesive structure. It's a network of local lodges with different levels of the impact of faith and governance in both England and America frequently built it, leading to a focus on humanistic and enlightened principles across continental Europe. Particularly in France and Italy explored the intricacies of politics, even taking actions contrary to the Church's impact. And in those very locations, the Jesuits have persisted through time, at times as protectors of belief, and at other moments as quiet witnesses in the context of the past. We encounter the most audacious hypothesis of all, suggesting that neither the Jesuits nor the Freemasons can be seen as either adversaries or genuine supporters, yet they represent two facets of a greater whole, an approach that harmonizes belief and logic, finding balance rather than opposition, working together to influence the course of events, a structure where the Black Pope does not hold ultimate authority, leader, yet just a connection in a much larger, an unspoken connection that the past has never fully captured or dared to articulate. When discussing the spiritual past of Europe, few phrases evoke a more profound sense of unease than heresy loomed large, and lurking behind that fear was a formidable force, the Inquisition. Belief had transformed from a beacon of hope into a weapon over the vulnerable, who had the courage to envision a different path. Yet amidst these harsh challenges, few recognized a person who remained in the shadows, yet subtly influenced the course of events. The leaders of the Jesuits, often referred to as the Black Pope, and the historical context of the Inquisition has been around since the 12th century, but by the 16th, it transitioned into a new phase of meticulous accuracy, aligning with the striking ascent of the Jesuit order. The Vatican required more than just faith to combat the Protestant Reformation. It sought a more refined instrument to manage ideas and eliminate dissent before it had the chance to arise. And the Jesuits represented an ideal force, possessing the intellect to identify and discern perilous ideas, the informative effort to transform perspectives, and, crucially, an observation, a web that extended across the Catholic realm, requiring neither warriors nor bloodshed. They quietly forwarded their findings to the main office, where the superior general reviewed and disseminated directives that not all Jesuits participated in, questioning or legal proceedings that were not their responsibility. The strength resided in a more profound guidance. They were the authors of the instructions. They established the boundaries that separated accepted beliefs from those deemed unorthodox, creating the frameworks within educational institutions where even a student's inquiry might be interpreted as a sign of inner defiance, and the individuals, or more accurately, their chief leader, managed the direction of ideas. At its origin, there was no necessity for incarceration. He influenced thoughts through internal communications, discreetly communicated instructions spread throughout Europe, akin to distant control. The system functioned so effectively that even those who had never faced accusations of heresy were apprehensive about their thoughts. In various interpretations, certain historians have expressed, your thoughts weren't extinguished by suffering. They met their end through intentional quietude. The Jesuits grasped this concept entirely. There was no need for interrogation. Instead, they fostered a setting where individuals monitored their own behavior within that atmosphere. Unconventional thoughts didn't require punishment. They faded away, not due to a lack of merit. Exist, yet due to the silence of many. Some accounts indicate numerous reports submitted by Jesuits following their lectures ignited cases of inquiry, intimate theological conversations, where remarks made in secrecy were subsequently recorded and transmitted back to the main office where the chief administrator. The decision would determine if a more extensive inquiry was necessary. It had moved beyond mere lecturing, using intellect to influence thoughts. It wasn't focused on protection, belief, yet reinterpreting it through unseen authority. The Inquisition was the communal resource, yet the enduring approaches, the cognitive structures, and the quiet recognition of spiritual decline all carried the mark of Jesuit influence, contemplating. And when such a system operates seamlessly, akin to a silent machine, the individual pulling the strings from behind the scenes poses a greater threat than in the courtroom. The superior general never found it necessary to enter a tribunal. With just a single nod from him, a whole network of devoted priests would make certain that any troubling thought vanished before it ever had the opportunity to expand the Vatican, which is just 44 tour. De Domweg was an area less expansive than a typical golf course. It remains a location where global leaders make discreet visits, accompanied by intelligence agencies, move gently as countless followers gaze with deep respect or discomfort in a realm dominated by petroleum wealth and armed power. The Vatican stands as it presents a curious situation. Lacking a large military force, an autonomous central banking system, and natural resources, materials, and yet it wields worldwide political power in manners that are quite rare. Truly grasp the stories hidden within those ancient stone walls. Roman, thick, and silent, the official pope doesn't always control every aspect. There are researchers, politicians, and others involved in the broader picture. Previous participants of clandestine groups have all suggested that there is the intellect guiding the Vatican, a hub of authority that functions with a more detached reasoning than belief, and more frequently than not. That individual is the chief leader of the Jesuits, often referred to as the Black Pope. Stand in contrast to the Pope, who is required to present himself before the public. Groups gather to speak with the media, giving speeches to the public, while the enigmatic figure remains out of sight, orchestrates an extensive and interconnected network of academic institutions and research facilities, organizations, and global advisory panels, all focused on the theme of learning, but subtly collecting insights, molding impact, and fostering connections with the global political elite. The Jesuits function in more than 110 locations, nations, They don't require embassies since each chapel, each school, a Jesuit university serves as a cultural haven, a space dedicated to education and subtle contemplation. Engage with the regional authority figures ranging from leaders in South America to those in Asia. Numerous heads of government received their education through Jesuit institutions. Regardless of intention or coincidence, they frequently embody the principles, the dedication, and the allegiance to the system. The factors that shaped them in contemporary governance suggest that allegiance to ideology might have greater longevity. More than just military partnerships, it embodies a singular approach, a perspective, a subtle conviction if nurtured within. Childhood can endure far beyond any agreement. The Jesuits are well aware of this truth. It's not enough to simply educate individuals in reading. It's essential to cultivate those who will establish the guidelines. The Vatican lacks information from satellites continuously streams to it. The Jesuits lack a public intelligence agency, do they not? Yet, in every classroom, every charity, and every chapel, there exist individuals who understand the importance of listening, observing, and, most crucially, knowing when to do so, who should be informed, as there's no need to violate any laws. They simply need to be present in the situation, the perfect setting with the ideal companion, and in those serene, private discussions where global strategies are crafted quietly, under the guidance of the superior general, might remain unvoiced, yet his impact resonates through the findings in the statistics and within the careful manner in which others express themselves. As one researcher noted, the Vatican is the sole nation that remains unbothered to announce its strength, as every other hub of influence is already aware of it, remains in that quiet mechanism. The shadowy figure never has to emerge. He simply makes sure that every connection works, from a young student in Manila to a scholar in Boston, reaches out to a cleric in Buenos Aires when necessary. Yet he refrains from making any formal declarations. He directs the flow of ideas in a realm where projectiles signify. The influence of ideas and beliefs surpasses mere power, as seen with the Vatican. A subtle and complex framework established by the Jesuits has evolved into a remarkable force of its impact transcends boundaries, quietly molding the essence of nations from the inside out. And that is, in the quiet corners of international gatherings, you might often catch a soft murmur of inquiry about who is present, resting quietly with the Vatican, while someone observes from the shadows. The narrative of the Vatican is shrouded in a divine glow, but also enveloped in a serene stillness where the end does not always arise from sickness, and the unexpected departure of a pope can envelop the world in stillness. On September 28, 19, merely 33 days after ascending to the papal throne, Pope John Paul was discovered peacefully in his secluded quarters within the Vatican, without any indication or forewarning. He departed from this life, an eerie stillness that felt almost unsettling, as if the quiet was brewing a tempest of questions that continue to resonate even after many years. John Paul the Dashbass was anything but ordinary. He was recognized for his progressive ideas and his strong connection with the community, his distinct aim to cleanse the Vatican of its increasing political and financial complex connections. Yet that same determination, as suggested by various theories, positioned him as a danger to those associated with deeply rooted authority within them. Some theorize was a fundamental traditionalist, a group within the Jesuit order emerged just days prior to the passing of John Paul II, and Fern was said to be getting ready for a thorough overhaul of the Vatican's financial system, particularly focusing on the Vatican Bank has long been the subject of speculation regarding its involvement in illicit financial activities and connections to various scandals. The Italian mafia He also intended to eliminate multiple high-ranking cardinals, some of whom were reportedly linked to clandestine organizations such as P2 propaganda, because a secretive organization that had embedded itself within the realms of finance, governance, and even religious institutions. The issue: many pivotal individuals within these networks maintained either direct or indirect connections to the Jesuits. The superior general wasn't mentioned directly, but there were independent investigations. Various journalists, historians, and even former intelligence agents all indicated in the same vein. There exists an unseen influence within the Vatican, not captured on film, yet palpable. In the hours leading up to his passing, John Paul I is reported to have gathered a few individuals to coordinate various matters, reliable companions to go over a roster of relocations and changes he planned to. It was revealed that the list had never been disclosed, and by morning he was discovered without life, a book lying open on his chest, his glasses still perched on his nose. The cause of death was recorded as a heart attack, and no autopsy was performed. An independent inquiry revealed no comprehensive medical documentation. Everything was concluded as fate intended. Yet, for those who understand the intricate dynamics of the Vatican, that silence resonated more profoundly than any tolling bell of mourning. Subsequent works, such as In God's Name, by David Yallop, and The Vatican Connection by Richard Hammer, sought to uncover hidden truths. While they couldn't provide conclusive legal evidence, they reached a consensus on one matter: there are significant influences lurking behind the scenes. Away from any formal scrutiny, the group had concluded that John Paul I was no longer able to proceed, and within the circle of suspects, the Jesuits, known for their extensive connections, unwavering discipline, and nuanced skills. The impact of internal church dynamics was frequently noted, without any direct references. There are claims, yet no definitive conclusions have been reached, leaving us to ponder whether it is possible for someone to be involved, have sufficient influence to topple a pope, and if that were the case, would action be necessary by yourself, or just push a button and allow the quiet device to take over? Slumber in the depths of the Vatican, where reality remains hidden from the brightness of day. It exists solely, caught sight of absent documents, fading remnants, and inquiries that remain unspoken. In any organization, a pledge serves as the cornerstone. It is the connection that weaves together an individual dedicated to a purpose that transcends ordinary existence. Yet within the Jesuit order lies the commitment to a solemn vow. It is not merely a routine. It represents a complete agreement, a metamorphosis of the Jesuits are recognized for transforming individuals into instruments of complete compliance, to undergo one of the most demanding training processes in the Catholic realm. Joining the Jesuit order involves more than just delving into theology or engaging in religious rituals. It is a lengthy journey that spans several years, an expedition filled with challenges that engage the body, mind, and spirit. Yet at the conclusion of that journey, there is a significant ceremony, the ultimate oath, and this oath is what distinguishes the Jesuits from other orders, is the unique vow that a Jesuit takes, unwavering allegiance not only to the pontiff, but also to the chief leader of the Jesuits. Embody loyalty not merely in a symbolic manner, but in a literal and uncompromising way. Instructions are regarded as divine, reflecting personal beliefs and feelings as well. To achieve a state of complete readiness for anything, one must eliminate all doubt, an endeavor that can take place in various contexts. There exists a section that has been the subject of much discussion, yet frequently referenced by academics from the Jesuits' advanced oath. I pledge that I shall possess no personal will. However, I will follow any directive and fulfill any task as instructed, necessary, even if it involves venturing into haunted territories or breaching the stronghold of the foe, eliminating the adversaries of the Church through all available methods, despite the fact that the Vatican has never formally acknowledged this intense situation. Internal training documents provide subtle hints and guidelines that describe how to let go of individual perspective and perceive the world from a broader view, viewed from the perspective of the order. A fundamental principle is consistently echoed throughout. Perinde asi cadava, as a lifeless form, signifies submission to those in authority, akin to a motionless figure, stillness in the face of another's command, devoid of opposition, devoid of inquiry, devoid of. It is this perspective that enables the Jesuits to operate on a global scale, transcending various cultures and languages. Governments in Congo and Canada may operate in complete alignment, much like a Jesuit in one country can seamlessly collaborate with a Jesuit in another, since both have been designed with the same framework of ideas connected to a single entity. Understand the Black Pope, as it's not merely a concept. These commitments have real-world implications, immersing oneself in conflict areas, adopting covert roles within adversarial factions, or carrying out discrete operations that remain unreported in any formal media. Some suggest that the Jesuits don't require prisons to confine individuals. They manage to keep them in a different way, with promises not merely upheld by rules, but through an inner conviction, a system of observation in which every individual learns to keep track of their own actions and provide feedback. If he deviates from the course within such a framework, the higher authority, the general, requires no punishment. A mere glance, a subtle message is all that's needed to inspire action. Countless individuals globally find themselves aligning like cogs turning in ideal harmony. This practice not only fosters structural resilience, establishes a type of unchangeable influence, where every person transforms into a devoted beacon, a structure supporting a worldwide system dedicated to a singular goal and a sole leader across the ages. Any group that inspires has taken such unwavering devotion, no matter the circumstances. It is referred to as not just a belief system. It encompasses a comprehensive approach, a method, and a resource in a broader context, a grander narrative than any words could convey. As the winds carried the sails of Spain in the 16th century, Portugal traversed the vast oceans, ushering in a transformative period for the world, the era of colonial powers. Yet within each journey, there existed a blend of soldiers and merchants and explorers. There was invariably a solitary figure clad in a dark robe, grasping as titua, bearing a cross and sacred melodies rather than arms. He was a Jesuit priest assigned with a purpose as significant as treasure. The pursuit of the Jesuits came to the New World, not to conquer land by means of aggression. They arrived to seek spiritual mastery through belief in uncharted lands. In secluded forest-dwelling tribes and isolated highland communities, they established missions, places of worship, educational institutions, and gradually restructured native existence in alignment with Catholic beliefs. The principles in Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina were set up. Self-sufficient enclaves known as reduccioneses, where indigenous populations resided, distinct from the colonial community, entirely governed by the Jesuit priests. Documents. These were tranquil havens, devoid of personal ownership, devoid of an atmosphere rich with harmony, reflection, and learning, a serene haven nestled within the lush greenery. Yet the inquiry remains, stays a haven for those who witnessed empires plundering wealth and subjugating lives. Jesuits asserted that their mission was to safeguard the dignity and souls of the indigenous people. Yet, they also successfully oversaw extensive resources, including land, agriculture, livestock, and more. Regulated commerce in salt and rare wood. Some scholars depict the reducciones as operating like small-scale, self-sufficient, tightly governed, and structured almost like a theocracy, an empire nested within another. Not every indigenous individual embraced the change. Many were gently encouraged to conform, often feeling the weight of subtle pressures, was unable to transform, could not be preserved, lacked access to learning, and were cast out from sanctuaries of divine safety. It formed a quiet yet binding mental restraint, more potent than any tether. Individuals were not constrained by coercion, but by their convictions, meticulously refined from their origins to the Vatican. The Jesuits thrived. In the New World, there was a significant achievement. They not only disseminated their beliefs, but also constructed a paradigm of civilization demonstrating that faith can establish the groundwork for a whole, the development of societies. However, to the colonial powers, this framework gradually evolved into a concern for indigenous groups under the care of Jesuit missionaries, experienced an increase in prosperity and abundance. Self-reliant and most troubling, they committed their allegiance to the Jesuits instead of. In the year 1767, King Carlos III of Spain found himself in a state of alarm due to the increasing power of the Jesuits in South America. Their removal was mandated. Across the vast expanse of Spanish territories, numerous missions fell into disuse, leaving behind the indigenous communities, individuals who had existed for countless years under the nurturing guidance of the Jesuits, were now compelled to integrate into dominant regimes through the use of military might. An entire hierarchy fallen, yet the seeds had already been sown prior to their departure. The Jesuits meticulously transcribed all documents, maps, and records. Confidential documents were covertly transported back to Europe during the period when the authority, a general in Rome, is thought to have quietly commanded the preservation of all knowledge pertaining to the New World. Certain missions, and a number of those documents remain unreleased, which uncovers there is a profound aspect to the Jesuits. They were not merely carriers of belief, but they also embodied a greater purpose. Guardians of ancient knowledge regarding a vast land, mysteries of native traditions, of concealed treasures within the realm of geography, and, perhaps most crucially, of the ways to manipulate the thoughts of individuals, and the mysteries kept hidden for ages might still be crafting approaches today that the world has yet to experience. It has been said that during the time when Europe was still captivated by the allure of gold and silver, in the Americas, the Jesuits had already begun to focus on a territory that contained no treasure in its earth, yet offered something far more coveted. An age-old civilization stood resolute and unaffected by mere belief. That territory was Asia, distinct and unparalleled. Recently uncovered lands, China and Japan, were well acquainted with authority. There were rulers, lineages, scripts, and intricate ways of thinking unique to their cultures. They remained steadfast in their beliefs, as they possessed their own revered texts. The Jesuits opted for an alternative approach. They decided not to engage directly with crosses, telescopes, calendars, and knowledge. The first Jesuit, Matteo Ricci, was the one who made his way to China in the late 16th century, although he did not engage in preaching there. Markets donning a priest's robe, he acquired Mandarin, while attired as a Confucian scholar, and presented Western science, astronomy, mathematics, geography. He didn't request the Chinese to. He encouraged them to have faith and to honor the reasoning of the cosmos. Once he gained their respect, he began to share his insights. Belief through reasoning, this method recognized as cultural adjustment turned into the establishment of the Jesuits' efforts throughout Asia, did not involve direct confrontation with the local populations. They subtly permeated the culture, focusing on academics, religious leaders, and even individuals associated with the royal courts in China had significant involvement with the Jesuits, assisting the Ming court in updating its astronomical calendar to forecast solar eclipses and synchronize imperial ceremonies with the movements of celestial bodies in a culture where the heavens represented a divine authority. For a period, the Jesuit priests held significant influence, operating in an unofficial capacity. Trusted advisors were appointed to manage the imperial observatories in Japan, guiding the way forward. Determined early Jesuits such as Francis Xavier achieved remarkable success in converting numerous thousands, particularly in Kyushu. But once the governing lords understood that the new beliefs had the power to split allegiances and brought European impact to the Tokugawa government, met with harsh repression, the practice of Christianity was prohibited. Though persecution started, the Jesuits did not vanish. Instead, they retreated into the shadows, spent years in seclusion, quietly guiding followers, even meeting their end. Individuals who sacrificed themselves without ever disclosing the identities of their fellow clergy, demonstrating steadfast commitment. Their unwavering commitment granted them a revered status among Japanese followers, as unseen champions of even in the face of repression. The ideas of the Jesuits have made a lasting impression, shaping our understanding of the divine. The concepts of redemption and Western ethical thought gradually infiltrated the Japanese intellectual community, sowing the beginnings of a transformation that the Jesuits also departed, influencing cultural changes that would emerge centuries later in China, rooted in a profound heritage of geography, medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. Yet beyond that, science has left a subtle mark, a gentle influence woven into the fabric of culture. Choices made during the Qing dynasty, when the practice of Christianity faced restrictions by Jesuit influences, manuscripts continued to be reproduced, examined, and shared among the distinguished academic communities in confidential and of utmost significance. The chief leader of the Jesuits from his position in Europe, there was always a keen awareness of the events unfolding in the East, accompanied by detailed reports and maps, political diagrams, and societal evaluations, meticulously compiled and transmitted back to Rome in various forms. He grasped the intricacies of Asian courts more adeptly than many Western monarchs, leading to a peaceful resolution, conquest without occupation. Yet the Jesuits managed to weave themselves into the cognitive framework of two of the most ancient societies, and that reveals to us their mission extended beyond mere conversion. It was about influencing the way a humanity reflects on its own existence. If the narrative of faith were a magnificent theater, then some of its most intense conflicts rarely took place in the daylight. They didn't occur on scarred landscapes, or did they resonate through the chimes of the church, unfolding in the ancient stone passages of the Vatican, a place where solemn prayers transformed into quiet notes for a select council, leading to significant decisions, crafted in quietude, that had the power to alter the destiny of the Church. Since its establishment in 1540, the Jesuit order, known as the Society of Jesus, has always stood apart. They were not seekers of solitude or embodiments of pure asceticism. They were prepared to be planners, teachers, advocates, and to push on in governance, advisors who exhibited adaptability and had an expansive influence, quickly became subjects of doubt from those outside, yet originating from within the church among the clergy, strong faction of traditionalists who clung firmly to established hierarchies and doctrinal stability started to perceive the Jesuits as excessively adaptable, overly clever, and too resourceful, challenging to manage the strain that initially emerged in their outreach efforts. As some groups held tightly to tradition and established beliefs, the Jesuits welcomed. In the local culture, individuals adorned themselves as Confucian scholars in China, utilizing native terminology to discuss the integration of Christian beliefs with regional customs within Catholic practices. For conservatives, this was not a matter of adaptation. It was a profound betrayal that they attributed to the Jesuits, facilitating dissent. diluting sacred truths and employing belief as a means for impact. Yet the true struggle extended beyond mere theology. It encompassed the influence of the Jesuits grew as they spread globally, shaping the minds of the elite through education. As the landscape of governance evolved, a sense of unease started to take root within the superior general was discreetly establishing a counterpart to the Vatican. One was openly declared, while another was quite genuine. Some popes expressed their discomfort openly. Pope Clement XV, who issued the decree to suppress the Jesuits in 1773, was reported to be under pressure from traditional groups within the Curia, individuals who struggled to accept a religious order, exercising greater independence than the majority. At one time, there were murmurs that the Jesuits might have the power to influence the archbishops. The selection of popes through thoughtfully nurtured connections within the College of Cardinals, or by guiding influential individuals long before they ascended to prominence. No evidence was ever presented, yet the inquiries lingered. Yet the Jesuits chose not to address these allegations directly. Instead, they continued their efforts undeterred. They continued their training. They persisted in sowing seeds. Their conviction was straightforward that resistance may diminish, yet concepts will persist far beyond. Allegations lingered, yet the tension remained unresolved in private. Discussions emerged between the traditionalist faction and the Jesuit group. They confronted each other regarding delicate matters, such as liturgical changes and the involvement of lay individuals, and the extent to which the Church ought to involve itself in contemporary politics remains a matter of contention, with no side ever achieving a definitive victory. Yet, in conflicts such as these, the side that exhibits greater patience, strategic thinking, and diligent effort tends to prevail, typically maintains significant influence for many years. The chief leader, the Jesuits, were strategic in their approach. He may not have been present at significant events, yet his impact resonated throughout the Catholic community. Academic institutions, research organizations, and policy centers, along with the Vatican, are all places where maintaining influence is crucial. Within the Church, the Jesuits have always faced a certain level of reluctance, yet they have never truly been excluded. They have been excluded, as the reality is that they embody what the Vatican cannot openly accept, and yet find impossible to exist without. During the onset of the First and Second global conflicts, the world descended into chaos, engulfed in flame and fueled by animosity and the disintegration of great powers collided. Nations crumbled, countless lives were lost. Yet in the midst of it all, amidst the tumult and clamor, there existed a singular presence that neither wielded weapons nor engaged in conflict, and never showed up on any military map, yet somehow managed to maintain influence, information, and a presence on both sides. In every conflict, the role of the Jesuits was significant, yet no official document has ever confirmed this, that the Society of Jesus was directly involved in military operations, and yet their presence throughout Europe, the Americas, and Asia, encompassing both allied, the regions controlled by the Axis powers, gave rise to the perception that they subtly functioned as conduits of the exchange of ideas and the quiet power of persuasion, particularly in times of during the period leading up to and throughout the Great War. Jesuit priests were actively involved in the operation of educational institutions, philosophy organizations, and endeavors throughout Germany, France, Austria, and Hungary, Italy, and even Russia. They possessed no firearms, yet they educated the youth of commanders, statesmen, and nobles. Numerous senior officials from every faction once occupied Jesuit classrooms, where the Vatican's stance of neutrality permitted Jesuits to navigate freely and convey messages, keep subtle channels of communication open during a period when typical exchanges were monitored. disrupt it, or obliterate it. Post-war records indicate that Jesuits might have acted as unofficial representatives, transporting communications among adversaries, and even offering counsel to specific leaders. Consistently emerging from obscurity, it was during the tumultuous times of World War II that the Jesuits found themselves in a significant position, an unclear focus as the Vatican upheld its well-known reticence. Amidst the ascent of Nazi Germany, numerous Jesuit priests in the country cultivated an intricate connection with Hitler's regime, where some chose to stand against it. Some assisted in the escape of Jews, while others were allegedly utilized to promote anti-communist sentiments. Communications framed as a means to safeguard Christian Europe from the Bolshevik wave emerging from the east in Austria. In Poland, numerous Jesuit clergy faced imprisonment, torture, or even death. Yet some endured, some remained unscathed, continuing to operate places of worship or educate, while under the oversight of the Nazis. That inconsistency brought up inquiries about whether there was a twofold approach being subtly orchestrated from inside the Vatican. Following the conflict as the conflict started to take shape as the Jesuits reappeared, not diminished, but strategically realigned. According to various accounts indicating that the Jesuit order, connections were utilized by the Allied forces, particularly in regions like Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Asia, where the danger of, in the aftermath of the war, the shadow of communism was ever present. Yet the superior general remained a figure of mystery, never making public appearances. Thought to maintain consistent communication with the CI, Vatican intelligence, and politically aligned Catholic groups in Europe. The details of those exchanges are kept under wraps, yet the outcomes are evident. The Jesuits not only emerged from the conflict unscathed, they broadened their international influence as empires fell apart. Boundaries shifted, a fresh global arrangement took shape. Yet the Jesuits persisted, untouched, unchallenged, unrecognized. And that brings us to softly pondering. Were they among the select few who perceived the whole chessboard and just strategically positioned their elements on either side amidst the dark and tumultuous backdrop of the 20th century? In the past, those who managed to endure without arms were not particularly fortunate. They were the ones who grasped the essence of influence best, and throughout the extensive timeline of the Catholic Church, no one has comprehended strength surpassing that of the Society of Jesus. The world wars concluded in devastation, debris, and ethical scars that had never been seen before. Civilizations fell apart. Countless lives were affected. Trust in the traditional system crumbled as countries rushed to revitalize their systems and reaffirm governance. There existed one entity that was already self-sufficient, regain its strength as it had never really diminished. It had merely taken a moment to pause and reflect, watch as the world embarked on a new chapter. With the arrival of the Jesuits, emerged softly, reminiscent of a phoenix reborn from its remnants, the post-war 20th century. It was a period marked by the tensions of the Cold War and the rise of consumer culture, yet it also represented an era of significant change, when influence shifted away from territory and weaponry, finding its source in the mastery of information. In the realm of ideas and educational frameworks, the Jesuits truly excelled. In under 30 years, the Society of Jesus reorganized its worldwide connections. They revitalized and upgraded educational institutions, including schools, universities, and research centers throughout the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Africa. No longer centered exclusively on theology, their curriculum now embraced social, political thought, philosophy, and even technology, all intertwined with Catholic values, were not present for an extended period. The teachings were conveyed solely through sacred texts, subtly intertwined with the principles of humanism, analyzing the importance of long-term viability and universal moral principles, drifting away with solitude. Scholars at global gatherings replaced the missionaries in far-off rainforests, embodying a spirit of humility and dedication to knowledge. Consultants in growth organizations and planners, with a Jesuit-influenced perspective, in government offices and academic think tanks. They were not adorned in ceremonial garments, yet they believed in a way of thinking akin to those devoted to a philosophy that knew no boundaries. And during this time, the position of the superior general began to change and develop. No longer merely a spiritual guide, he evolved into the worldwide strategist of the reports on the influence of the order came in from numerous Jesuit centers around the globe, meticulously analyzed and applied to predict shifts in governance, societal dynamics, and cultural movements. The necessity of covert operations, the absence of weaponry. Knowledge was strength, and the Jesuits were aware of this. This surpasses the understanding of anyone from the 1960s and 70s, as the world was in turmoil, from crises of faith, the Vietnam conflict, societal upheavals, the dissemination of Marxist ideas. The Jesuits embraced the turmoil, navigating through various ideologies without resistance. Visionaries, bold thinkers, and even those who sparked change had once gathered in the halls of Jesuit education. And this was it was a strategy, a contradiction, as the Jesuits understood how to influence the narrative. In a realm where chaos reigned, you found yourself unable to remain on the periphery. You had to immerse yourself in it and navigate it from the inside. It was in these years that individuals started to express the Jesuits have evolved from their original missionary role into a global strategic institution, and this transformation may not have been entirely unexpected. Incorrect, from United Nations meeting spaces to NGO centers, from prestigious universities to post-colonial governments. Jesuit alumni were in every corner. They may not have donned cassocks, yet they possessed a methodical mindset cultivated within the walls of classrooms. In a distant past, there was a commitment to adjust while remaining steadfast in purpose, leading to a pivotal moment. Subtle significance in 2012 marked a unique moment in the annals of the Catholic Church. Chosen a Jesuit leader, Pope Francis, a previous Jesuit priest, a figure molded by the struggles and inequities in the neighborhoods of South America to the globe. His ascent was a symbol of renewal, yet for those who had delved into the Jesuits over 5 centuries, it was the ultimate peak of a carefully crafted journey. The learner now positioned upon the pale seat and lurking in the darkness. The dark priest remains. He stayed away from the spotlight, not seeking recognition, and chose not to present himself in St. Peter's Square, spanning various lands. He subtly maintained a broad web where individuals who appeared to be unrelated gradually gravitated towards a common belief, approach, and steadfast dedication. As the globe transitioned into the era following the Second Global Conflict, an age when the landscape of global influence shifted, not merely through formal discussions but through the veils of intelligence networks. In the dense haze of the Cold War, where each superpower maintained its own from the emergence of distinct ideologies, each equipped with its own tools and objectives, there arose unexpected partnerships, silent alliances that remained unacknowledged, yet were undeniably clear, influential in every tactical choice made quietly amidst the numerous contentious figures of the 20th century. The Central Intelligence Agency, known as the CIA, and the Jesuits have a fascinating connection, a religious order dedicated to devotion and righteousness. is a title that not many would recognize. Anticipate discovering alongside one that was conducted with complete confidentiality, bringing about a downfall. Nations working together in secret operations and gathering information from around the world. A group dedicated to teaching, guiding, and spreading faith, all in the name of divine service. The reality and the juxtaposition formed an unusual harmony, one that is not readily apparent, clarified through reason alone, as both entities possessed a distinctive characteristic, an extensive web that provides profound insights into local communities, and the capacity to delve deeply. The essence of society in the aftermath of World War II, the United States came to understand. The understanding that nuclear weapons would not foster goodwill. The CIA started to explore more nuanced pathways of impact. And in this serene arena, the Jesuits there are numerous educational institutions, places of worship, and organizations distributed globally, transformed into a perfect companion. Though there are no formal records connecting them, yet numerous accounts, released documents, and the memories of past operatives, it is suggested by scholars and religious leaders that this casual association started to take shape in the 1950s, particularly in regions such as Latin America, Southeast Asia, and certain areas of Africa in the South. In a time when revolutionary ideas were spreading throughout the continent, numerous Jesuit priests took the initiative to guide community education, initiatives that were also noted for offering insights into changes in governance. The collective feelings and actions of the populace is detailed in various accounts. The CIA engaged in covert partnerships with Jesuit clergy to gather social information, examine political movements, and facilitate anti-communist communication via educational institutions and religious organizations. In Vietnam, amidst the conflict with the French, and subsequently with the Americans, Jesuit missions subtly transformed into centers of communication that has long been intertwined with the fabric of local communities, involving clergy and the Catholic faith. Ordinary individuals managed to collect vital information from regions that were beyond the reach of any foreign agent they had confidence in, because they possessed a strong belief, and that confidence granted them not only access, but also insight. Organizations were unable to succeed in Africa as the Cold War evolved in a contest for power and sway. The Jesuits initiated their endeavors amidst the rivalry of the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Contemporary initiatives emphasize wellness education and charitable efforts, although some previous American agents eventually acknowledged that Jesuit centers frequently offered more dependable and impartial accounts than U.S. embassies themselves. Hold a fascinating aspect that many senior officials find noteworthy. Officials from the CIA received their education in institutions run by the Jesuits, with Georgetown being particularly notable. University is among the most significant Jesuit institutions in the United States. Organizations that profess to support the community, resisted oppression, and championed liberty. Yet, the understanding of that liberty was diverse and profound, as were the CIA. Were the Jesuits genuine allies, or merely two formidable entities? Operating in unison, there are various paths to consider, and while the answer may not be straightforward, a strategic approach can guide the way. The viewpoint they expressed a significant aim. Mastery over the intellect one commanded, covert techniques and information, while the other focused on teachings, learning, and conviction. The primary aim continued to be to mold the world in line with a vision that each of them held to be correct, and in a realm where conflicts are resolved not through explosives, but through the exchange of ideas. Understanding and intellect, those who shape our thoughts, emotions, and actions are the ones who genuinely possess power. The CIA holds the reins of information, while the global financial elite command the flow of money in the contemporary landscape. There exists no force more lasting than that which governs both thoughts and wealth. This is why an inquiry, what was once brushed off as mere speculation, is now gaining traction and being considered with greater seriousness. Could it be that the Jesuits, with their extensive global connections and long-standing impact, are well positioned to align with, or even leading some of the most affluent families and corporations in the world? The Jesuits have been recognized for their sharp intellect and strategic acumen since the 16th century. One fundamental realization emerged: a spiritual community cannot endure solely on belief. It requires a solid financial foundation, self-sufficient and strong, which is why they were among the earliest faith communities to make significant investments in land, learning, and particularly finance, from outreach hubs in Latin America, in Europe, and North America. The Jesuits subtly established an extensive and an elaborate network of resources frequently safeguarded by non-profit designation but profoundly linked to significant enterprises, central financial institutions, and private equity firms. Independent researchers have noted that numerous founders or senior advisors at influential European banks had connections to individuals who were once Jesuit priests or received their education directly from Jesuit institutions, with names such as Rothschild Morgan and some specific Swiss banking institutions have been involved. Experts and visionaries with foundations grounded in Jesuit teachings. In the United States, institutions such as Georgetown Forum and Boston College represent more than just religious universities. Serve as nurturing environments for the development of political leaders, financial experts, and global economic advisors. Numerous distinguished graduates have advanced to roles as hedge fund leaders, central bank authorities, or even finance ministers. However, the true bond is found not merely in knowledge, but in a common belief system. The Jesuits go beyond merely instructing individuals on achieving success. They emphasize the importance of serving others, an important purpose that emphasizes structure, consistency, and ethical guidance, an organization for the world's influential individuals who continuously strive to present a compassionate image for safeguarding. The principles of Jesuit thought provide an ideal framework for managing resources and steering clear of societal criticism. Quiet collaborations, which is why in numerous nations, extensive development initiatives backed by significant financial institutions are frequently managed or guided by organizations affiliated with Jesuit institutions or their charitable branches. This collaboration fosters a unique form of gentle influence, where monetary resources and belief systems intertwine under the spirit of kindness. Various international organizations are establishing educational institutions, providing assistance to those in need, and distributing resources. Yet lurking in the background are financial institutions facing allegations of financial deceit, illicit transactions, or undermining emerging markets. So, individuals who bridge these two realms are frequently former Jesuit priests or people profoundly influenced by the educational frameworks of the Jesuits, frequently referred to as the Black Pope. Has yet to make an appearance at any global financial summit. Advisory boards, think tanks, and the Jesuits form a closely interconnected global web, suggesting he probably has insight into the financial flows, is moving, who is orchestrating events, and how to position power for optimal effect. The impact on society has evolved. It's not merely about faith anymore, but rather a unified worldwide movement, an arrangement of authority in which every monetary choice has the potential to trigger a series of events in the realms of learning, governance, and even the essence of spirituality intertwine. And in that intricate dance, the Jesuits might play a significant role. They may not be the ones visibly directing the actions, yet they are the ones influencing the governing body may oversee the markets, while the intelligence organizations may hold sway, the movement of knowledge. But to guide the direction of a whole, to build a thriving society, one requires more than just wealth or information. It is essential to have a foundation, a space where the true architects of our world can convene quietly, away from the prying eyes of the public, by governance and shielded from societal views. They refer to them as concealed. In contemporary times, it is quite typical for significant occurrences related to finance to be discussed at conferences, unexpected upheavals in governance, abrupt transitions in leadership, or the fallout from electoral turmoil. Diplomatic strategies have unfolded through discreet discussions that lack formal documentation. Official remarks. Yet there are always those who seem to be aware, along with some enigmatic individuals. Repeatedly observed, the Jesuits frequently found themselves the subject of hushed suspicions, maintain a subtle existence, marked only by the serene influence of Jesuit individuals or others, educated within their organizations at exclusive gatherings, like Bilderberg meetings, or the World Economic Forum in Davos. The advisory boards of the Vatican have been observed not wearing collars and not making any claims to embody faith. Yet they encompass a mindset, a way of doing things, and above all, a dedication that transcends mere belief, scholars, or groups, yet to an ancient, more profound structure. Numerous investigators have pondered the reasons behind this. Numerous influential individuals within international strategy groups and organizations, like the IMF and NATO, express is the brilliance of those with Jesuit educational backgrounds due to their inherent intelligence, or is it a result of being selected for a specific purpose? If the latter, who makes that choice? Making selections is one of the most intriguing enigmas that centers on the unofficial conversations among spiritual figures and financial institutions, as noted by some sources, often lack. When engaging in conversations about spirituality or belief systems, individuals often explore topics such as maintaining societal stability in challenging times and how to navigate through them, manage media stories with compassion, and maintain the confidence of the public as authorities may find their trust waning. And in these discussions, scholars from the Jesuit tradition frequently take on a significant role, even if they don't hold power. They navigate and facilitate conversations with a focus on balance, morality, and consistency. But one must wonder if there is more to it than meets the eye. There exists a more subdued perspective, one that seldom finds its way into conversation, suggesting that the Jesuits or the superior general himself are not just visitors at these. They might be organizing these gatherings indirectly, perhaps without direct involvement, through a web of intellectual hubs. NOS's extensive research facilities and carefully positioned past members within international organizations, no agreements. There are no signatures, yet everything flows with a graceful rhythm. Certain gatherings unfold seamlessly in tranquil monasteries nestled in Switzerland. Others find solace at serene universities in Austria, France, or Italy, where visitors are welcomed, merely hinted at the overarching narrative, while the true orchestrator stays hidden. After each meeting, there are no announcements, yet the world appears to carry on in its own way. Move the figure that lingers in the background, quietly observing as life unfolds beyond, calls out without uttering a sound, yet resonates with everyone if you've ever come across the saying. Silence isn't ignorance, It's a choice. This insight might help you grasp why the Jesuits never find it necessary to take center stage to impact even the most illuminated spaces when a narrative grows overwhelming, profound, and intensely genuine. The best method to create the people should stop thinking of it as mere entertainment. It's a straightforward yet profound concept, a compelling approach that contemporary media and the film sector have expertly honed centuries. And when it involves enigmatic power dynamics, such as the Jesuits, the Black Pope, or the obscure networks beyond the Vatican, Hollywood and the global mainstream media have always been more than just. Observers reflect on the countless occasions they've encountered cloaked figures in dark garments meandering through the shadows, ancient monasteries softly murmuring sacred verses, engaged in hidden ceremonies, or even coordinating covert operations, battling for sacred artifacts, and manipulating the dynamics of spiritual conflicts. From the Da Vinci Code to Angels and Demons, from Vatican secrets documentaries to fictional dramas, suggesting a shadowy congregation, the Jesuits and clandestine Catholic organizations have emerged as persistent themes in popular culture. Yet, here lies the contradiction. The more they are showcased on screen, the more their genuine life inquiries are brushed aside as mere imagination, is recognized as the discredit through fiction effect, a communication method frequently observed by sociologists and psychologists suggest that when a reality is too unsettling for society to confront, it is best to let. They might find it amusing or entertaining, but eventually their interest will wane, seeking further insight. Who was the mastermind behind this approach, and who gains from transforming spiritual enigmas into influential plots and incorporating groups such as the Jesuits into film narratives, presents an intriguing concept to ponder, exploring various filmmakers, writers, and producers involved in significant films centered around Vatican themes, were instructed at Jesuit institutions, or had scholarly connections to them, such as Georgetown, Loyola Marymount, and Boston College, offer more than just theology courses. They provide a rich tapestry of knowledge and understanding, offer exceptional media and film programs, and even support projects related to faith-based cinema. It's interesting how numerous films critical of the Vatican tend to maintain a certain boundary. They might surprise, yet they consistently conclude with a sense of tranquility or conceal the true essence of the tale beneath the depths of enchanting fiction, love, or adventure, mysteries. And as people ponder whether the Pope is concealing the Holy Grail, or if Jesus left something behind, heritage, the genuine and much more pressing inquiries are obscured in the haze of Idor. The creative influence akin to the hierarchical organization of the Jesuits and the responsibilities of the leader, common in worldwide choices, or the Vatican's monetary partnerships, even during the era of them. In a digital landscape where information circulates rapidly, discussions surrounding the Jesuits or the Black Pope seldom gain traction. Through the concealed layers, profound and contemplative material is gently subdued. Channels that communicate too directly may face restrictions or be hidden from view. Silently extracted and authentic archival materials are misinterpreted. By undermining their credibility, has mainstream media transformed into an ideal distraction. The screen serves not to conceal reality, but to soften it, twist it, and ultimately reshape our perception. Is there a guiding force or methodically designed framework that influences the media to divert our attention? The universe unfolds by seeking the appropriate inquiries. And if that's true, then the display has transformed from a reflection of truth into a soft drape, concealing a behind the scenes where the real influencers never enter the. Throughout every era, the seat of power has consistently represented the pinnacle of authority. The authority within the Vatican, where the throne gleams in white, embodies a holy essence that is both pure and divine, representing the profound influence of belief for countless individuals. The Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church, the guardian of canon law, the representative of divine authority. In this vast world, how often do we pause to ponder if there is indeed a singular force guiding everything? Behind each pope lies a carefully interlinked framework of cardinals, bishops and archbishops, cloistered individuals and religious thinkers, yet even further, hidden away in secluded spaces, hidden discussions and unrecorded choices reveal a power seldom acknowledged yet. There is a constant notion that authority reigns supreme among the Jesuits, or as numerous commentators refer to him in a detached manner, as the Black Pope. In contrast to the officially elected Pope, the College of Cardinals received a warm welcome in St. Peter's Square, where applause echoed as the Black Pope made his entrance. He does not seek public acclaim. He refrains from stepping onto balconies, offering no blessings, yet his influence permeates softly, delving into the various aspects of Vatican functions, ranging from education to academic guidance, the impact of media and international tactics for those who have been involved. The Vatican refers to the Superior General as the mastermind, operating behind the scenes. He subtly sets the stage, laying down the initial piece without drawing attention. The subsequent events appear to progress effortlessly, as though they are guided by an inherent rhythm. A script has already been composed. When examining the past, it's evident that there have been popes who chose to step down, most notably Pope Benedict XVI, who resigned quietly amidst scandals and pressures, silent influences that guided him, shaping the unseen burden that resulted in withdrawal, unspoken yet palpable, lingers in the atmosphere of that instant. The name of the Jesuit emerged subtly in numerous discussions, leading to a pivotal moment. For the first time in the extensive timeline of the Vatican, a Jesuit was chosen as Pope, marking a significant moment with the election of Pope Francis. Appeared unremarkable, yet upon closer inspection, it signified the inaugural moment of the White Throne. It was asserted by an individual from the most enigmatic society on the planet. Was it mere chance, or the culmination of an extensive journey? An understated movement of persuasion, a time when the Jesuits spoke not in hushed tones from the wings, yet took a bold step onto the stage. When the script is crafted by the director, it's no wonder when the main performer starts to resemble him more and more. While the higher authority stays out of sight, yet his community, his beliefs, his thoughtfully nurtured connections now possess some of the top positions within the church, filled by young cardinals who have received their education at Jesuit institutions, alongside academic councils and legal bodies, consultants and communication experts, ensuring that when the pontiff delivers his address, it resonates effectively. The balcony where the world tunes in, echoing in 50 languages, who penned the initial draft that the inquiry might remain unanswered in the public domain. Yet as we continue to observe the Vatican's operations, we notice a distinct adherence to discipline and an air of secrecy, almost flawless effectiveness. As we start to understand the brilliance of the radiant seat, might originate from a place that is much more shadowy, profound, and boundless. Calmer, not every force requires visibility to have an impact. The most perilous type is the kind that remains hidden, echoing through the corridors of the Vatican, where belief intertwines with the past. In the realm of ancient discourse, the true orchestrator remains hidden, guiding the narrative from the shadows. One in front of the camera, South America, a realm of passionate essence, where the majestic Andes rise high above the intricate Amazons and where the essence of bygone eras quietly resides under the presence of Christ, Redeemer. Yet it is also a land that experienced significant upheaval during the 20th century, repeatedly through military takeovers, authoritarian regimes, and conflicts of belief. In the ongoing discourse surrounding the ideological clash between two economic systems, many global analysts have frequently pointed fingers at the agency responsible for covert operations, the involvement of intelligence agencies, or economic powers in the political affairs of nations, such as Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and Bolivia. Yet one organization is seldom mentioned, UTID. The Jesuits have left their mark in numerous places. By the 17th century, the Jesuits had ventured into the most remote areas of Paraguay, Peru, and Brazil, creating secluded religious communities. These were not merely missionary outposts. They represented experimental socio-political endeavors, frameworks in which native populations were subdued under the guise of spiritual salvation. Alongside the actions of empires fell apart, and countries in South America achieved their freedom, while the Jesuits remained unaffected. They took a step back, transforming into guides and mentors, occasionally stepping into the role of teachers, individuals who fostered harmony amid turmoil. Yet from those roles, they also influenced the thoughts of individuals who would eventually rise to prominence in the 20th century, as the United States and the Soviet Union transformed South America into a strategic battleground during the Cold War. Jesuit priests openly endorsed movements for liberation, advocating for Christian socialism and the principles of social equality, formed spiritual partnerships with opposition factions, from the Sandinistas in Nicaragua regarding the FARC in Colombia. Yet there's an intriguing contradiction. The Jesuits remained neutral. For instance, they selected their stance while certain priests stood side by side with peasant fighters, while others were delivering lectures. At prestigious gatherings frequented by the offspring of military commanders and elite figures, many began to question whether the Jesuits maintained a position of neutrality or if there were underlying motives at play. Strategically present in multiple locations in 1973, during the presidency of Salvador Allende, the initial democratically elected Marxist leader faced a violent overthrow in Chile, as observed by numerous scholars. Spiritual guides were present on both sides, with Jesuit priests standing alongside. Allende was in the midst of his campaign, while former Jesuit students found themselves inside the coup. Command centers also existed in Argentina during the troubling times. Conflict, during which countless individuals were taken or went missing, including some members of the clergy, were silenced for voicing their truths, while others chose to remain quietly indifferent. And in the admissions made within those prison walls to Jesuit clergy were occasionally utilized in a discreet manner. Investigate the resilience of political dissidents and the survival strategies of the Jesuits amidst oppressive regimes. Transformative movements reveal that their lasting approach is rooted in the power of knowledge, the impact of persuasion, and the art of quietude. They refrained from wielding arms, instead focusing on instructing those who would. They chose not to document strategies they imparted to those who would linger in the background of each upheaval. Some prayed, others observed quietly, yet the Jesuits remained steadfast, continuing their teachings, establishing new training facilities, and even penning the life stories. The key individuals of the past understood that true influence lies not in weapons or votes, but in thoughts and concepts that shape our understanding. When positioned appropriately, even in the harshest conditions, growth can still occur. Even in revolutions, every dictator has a starting point. Not everyone enters the world seated in power, with authority at their command, or wielding a weapon with intent. Some emerge from hardship, while others ascend the heights of privilege, militarimis. Yet it's intriguing to note that a significant number of them devoted their early years within the framework of Jesuit education. It may seem paradoxical how a religious organization founded on principles of service, humility, and education has evolved into a nurturing environment. For those who thrive on dominance and regulation, the solution is found within the framework of Jesuit educational philosophy. There is a strong emphasis on discipline, logical reasoning, and the cultivation of critical thinking skills. The art of persuasion and strategic impact within Jesuit educational institutions are not only instructed in theology or classical literature, they are prepared to perceive society as a cohesive system, one that can be comprehended, molded, and directed. Consider maybe the most renowned instance. Fidel Castro, the revolutionary figure of Cuba, who pursued his studies at Colegio Dalen, renowned Jesuit institution in Havana, where he honed not just his knowledgeable, yet also discovered the strength of meticulous arrangement and the art of expression, such as arms and the deep allure of principles. A clergyman, who once instructed him, stated that he wasn't merely intelligent, he had a vision to transform the world. Much like Castro did, wasn't alone. There was also Rafael Trujillo from the Dominican Republic, and Alfredo Stroessner, Paraguay. François Duvalier of Haiti all went through establishments managed by. Interestingly, many of the Jesuits continued to uphold discreet connections with spiritual mentors, even after taking control. The more you explore, the more evident it becomes that tyrants are not inherently evil. They learn to interpret the audience, to navigate the nuances of collective sentiment, to create emblems of authority, and those instruments, whether by design or coincidence, frequently were refined in Jesuit classrooms, steeped in a rich tradition that spans 5 centuries. Doesn't imply that the Jesuits produce tyrants, but they do prepare minds that some may utilize, instruments for the benefit of others, wield them to govern, for every lofty principle the former in the stillness of a serene moment, one can envision how easily something can fall into the wrong grasp, leaving it open to influence and control. In a classroom setting, a young student at the age of 14 begins to master the art of language, honing their skills to influence and persuade others in the years that follow. That same boy stands before tens of thousands, lifting a rifle and proclaiming a fresh system. Yet the influence he holds transcends mere might. It encompasses the intricacies of language and its framework, a mindset meticulously shaped by the guidance of Jesuit hands, often seen in the actions of these formidable individuals, confronting a personal struggle or external danger. They find themselves back at the starting point, the spiritual guides who previously imparted wisdom, now in search of serene guidance or gentle counsel from ancient connections they continue to rely on. No one can conclusively assert the role of the Jesuits, meant to create tyrants. Yet the overwhelming presence of oppressive rulers who once strolled through their corridors poses the inquiry of whether the beginnings established ages past in tranquility, marked by restraint and a serene reverence for strength. In a quiet yet profound manner, the conclusion of World War unfolded, marked by the powerful imagery of Allied triumph, all while the world continued on, seemingly unaware, and Nazi Germany reduced to ashes. Yet those who genuinely grasp the past are aware. Numerous infamous war criminals evaded justice, including Adolf Eichmann and Josef Mengele, Klaus Barbie. Those names lingered beyond the ruins of Berlin. They vanished, and their vanishing was not merely a twist of fate. It was orchestrated, enabled through a complex web of support from entities that remain unknown. Might imagine cloistered communities, ecclesiastical territories, and particularly an enigmatic passageway of faith extending from Europe to South America, often referred to as the rat lines. These covert routes frequently originated in Austria, Italy, or Spain, traversing through religious way stations and ultimately leading to their destinations, straight to Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, or Syria. The operators were not in uniforms. They donned garments and released records from the Vatican, Specifically, some monastic groups in Italy and Austria were thought to be assisting forged papers, humanitarian organization identification, and even philosophical rationalizations for widespread actions. Individuals who committed serious crimes and escaped from Europe, particularly certain members of the Jesuit order, faced allegations of providing refuge to those on the run, SS officers, Gestapo agents, and German scientists before they were discreetly integrated into broader frameworks, such as America's Operation Paperclip, carried out by the CIA and its predecessors, was a mission to recruit numerous German scientists, many of whom had been part of the Nazi regime, into the United States engaged in military and space initiatives that were not favored by the country. These minds slipping into Soviet control, yet vanishing from Nazi grasp. They required a dependable cleaning system, and the Vatican, with its capacity to provide humanitarian assistance, documents for displaced individuals, and its extensive network of religious communities throughout Europe, served as an ideal connection in the sequence, with numerous monasteries acting as temporary havens, sanctuaries, shielded by spiritual protection. A few ex-Nazis, discreetly supported by clergy or religious figures, underwent transformations in their identities, documented on paper, and were assigned new roles on vessels sailing towards the New World. An intriguing question lingers. Did the Jesuits, known for their extensive global connections, engage in discrete activities and maintain a profound influence in various regions within the corridor connecting Austria, Italy, and Spain? There exists a significant influence, yet no official documents are available to the public, validated. Yet numerous observers, scholars, and impartial chroniclers. I've observed this trend wherever discrete human movements occurred, particularly those that were specially trained. In South America, clergy were frequently present as hundreds of former Nazi officers discovered a semblance of paradise. They were greeted not by underground agents, but by the locals. Communities of the faithful occasionally find themselves led by priests who have received their training in Europe. Could it all just be a matter of chance? A chilling theory begins to take shape in the gaze. Even a mass murderer might find redemption through the guidance of certain clergy, provided they possess a strategic approach, worthwhile if they could assist in combating communism, or offer significant insights. Then, assisting them in evading accountability was subtly regarded as fulfilling a greater mission. Yet, here rests the fundamental question: who determines what purpose is significant enough and who holds that authority? Concluded that Isef Mengele warranted a quiet escape into safety, while the countless others lost their life without ever being remembered. Perhaps no one today holds the answer. Yet one thing remains certain: the quietude surrounding the Vatican, particularly from influential groups such as the Jesuits, was undoubtedly the driving force behind this intricate web. Endured and flourished for many years, as long as transgressions could be concealed within the confines of grand cathedral structures. When strategy reshapes our understanding of morality, even those who commit the most heinous acts may find themselves viewed through a lens of grace, if they understand the path. When we consider contemporary conflict areas from the flames, the ancient deserts of the Middle East, the war-torn landscapes of Africa, and the divided territories of Eastern Europe, often envision global humanitarian organizations, peacekeeping troops, or journalists on the ground. However, a deeper examination reveals more complexities. In the midst of humanitarian reports, medical logs, and relief records, a single name subtly emerges, more frequently than one might anticipate. The Jesuits, a religious order established almost 5 centuries ago. The mission to convert the non-believers found its way into the very essence of contemporary society. Are conflict zones a sanctuary for saving souls, or merely a place for gathering. The role of intellect in fostering belief or influencing the aftermath of conflict. Narratives from Iraq, Syria, Congo, Venezuela, Afghanistan, and Myanmar. Jesuit. Organizations such as the Jesuit Refugee Service (JRS) consistently play a vital role. They established educational facilities in refugee camps, provided medical supplies, and offered lessons to children who have been orphaned by conflict. That picture is an admirable individual and genuine, yet this is merely a fragment of the reality surrounding these humanitarian efforts. Missions represent a highly structured network that can intricately integrate within local communities, grasping the essence of cultures and honing the skills of native languages, functioning over an extended period while remaining inconspicuous. It's not surprising that numerous intelligence organizations make reference to the Jesuit order, clergy serving as the gentle observers and listeners in conflict areas where knowledge is skewed, information is suppressed, and authorities are divided in their approach. Clerics and monks frequently serve as reliable informants for numerous individuals, perspectives that extend beyond the Vatican, encompassing embassies, noses, and even national interests. Intelligence agencies may not have the intention to surveil, yet when a group offers health care, educates youth, engages with orphans, seniors, and militia members, the impact on soldiers is profound, as the depth of understanding they acquire frequently exceeds that of any military unit. When knowledge transforms into treasure amidst conflict, those who possess it subtly guide the course. Consider the situation in Syria, where Jesuits persisted even amidst the siege. Regions such as Aleppo and Homs, as the majority of global organizations withdrew, certain Jesuit groups continued to provide medical assistance while monitoring humanitarian conditions. And before long, their documents channeled through the Vatican arrived at the desks of European leaders in the Congo, a significant chapter marked by one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. Were influenced by the Jesuits. Beyond merely opening schools, they participated in conversations aimed at healing the divisions caused by conflict. Groups once more took on the role of intermediaries, yet these intermediaries had their own agendas, the curriculum of philosophy, and occasionally their personal political beliefs shaping the young individuals were taught as the globe enters a fresh era of international relations. Adjustment in response to an increasing resistance to military involvement. Subtle influences such as the Jesuits are increasingly important. They bear no arms, yet possess significant influence, significant impact on the societal and ideological consequences that follow a conflict. Raises a challenging inquiry. Are they merely motivated by Christian principles, or are they the unseen architects, gently reconstructing societies from the? Perhaps the solution can be found in the original strategy of the Jesuits from the 16th century. To penetrate via learning, control through belief systems, and change without power in a time when explosives are no longer the key to victory. Individuals like them clad in dark attire, gentle figures adorned in flowing garments, equipped with thoughtful strategies, could very well represent the future. The influence of contemporary conflict in an era dominated by rapid technological advancements, a unique evolution. Amidst the tensions of a bygone era and a growing sense of skepticism, it often goes unnoticed that the Jesuits are ever present, quietly enduring, subtle, yet significant, always at the heart of this expansive realm. In a serene setting, a solitary figure quietly supervises nearly 6,000 members of a significant organization. In a home of countries, he remains off the screen, avoiding social media and staying out of the public eye. In the depths of understanding, there are only a select few who grasp his true thoughts. He is known as Arturo Sosa Abascal, a priest from Venezuela, born in Caracas in 1948, who holds a doctorate in political science. He once taught at Georgetown University and served as the rector of a Catholic university. It is particularly noteworthy that in 2010, an individual was elected as the 31st Superior. The leader of the Society of Jesus in this capacity serves as the immediate successor to Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits in the 16th century. He is referred to as the Black Pope, not due to his skin color, but because of the influence he wields. Possesses an influence that operates quietly, an authority not defined by official documents, but in a position to guide, influence, and occasionally step in. What sets Arturo Sosa apart is not solely his academic achievements, but also an intricate and somewhat intangible political philosophy, contrasting with the tendency of many religious leaders to avoid the complexities of geopolitics. He engages in discourse, freely discussing economic systems, societal inequalities, environmental issues, population movements, and the connection between belief and authority is a topic of interest for numerous analysts who argue that he is more than merely as a guiding figure. He works subtly to reshape the Vatican's influence in the evolving world stage. Request a clergyman knowledgeable in religious studies and familiar with Marxist thought and a previous member of global research organizations focused on political and economic studies and sustainable development. He is fluent in Spanish, Italian, and English, and has a conversational level in French. There's no requirement for frequent communication. Just a handful of private meetings behind closed doors will suffice. Notes and thoughtful approaches to engaging young minds via Jesuit institutions across the globe. This is sufficient to alter the landscape of social influence. Imagine the perspectives of CEOs, scholars, and others, leaders throughout the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Yet many of them had a past. Students in Jesuit institutions were influenced by a philosophy centered on spirituality, insight, yet also equipped with skills in service leadership and social strategy. Consider the influence of the Jesuit curriculum and ponder who really molds the future, if not those individuals who instilled in them the ability to think from the outset. And that is the strength of a Black Pope. He doesn't require physical presence to exert influence. He merely requires to maintain the system's functionality in a subtle and efficient manner, perpetually shaping worldwide impact via learning and altruistic efforts. In the realms of thought and governance, there may be voices you've yet to encounter, perspectives that remain unspoken. Have you come across his image in the news? But if you've observed changes in worldwide learning trends in Bible, the manner in which we understand fairness as we cultivate the next generation of leaders who then hold on to that belief. Behind those changes, a figure in a dark robe is reshaping the world, a guide marked by wisdom and steadfast devotion to the Society of Jesus and beyond. The first century, regardless of its technological advancements or AI-driven innovations, remains a fascinating era, even in a world that has become interconnected. The influence of an organization that has remained in the shadows endures for almost 5 centuries, and the individual at the helm currently is none other than Arturo Sosa. As the world transitioned into the 21st century, a figure emerged that many referred to as the Black Pope of our time, capturing the attention and intrigue of those observing the unfolding events. The time of political religion had reached its conclusion, marked by the Crusades and the involvement of popes, the echoes of military might, and the grim tales of sacred conflicts felt like remnants from an era long gone in. It was anticipated that contemporary perspectives would lead faith to yield its place for the advancement of scientific understanding. Democracy and the free market often intertwine, yet the course of history seldom follows a direct path. And amidst the backdrop of worldwide turmoil, environmental shifts, indirect conflicts, and population movements, economic hardship and societal inequities are subtly making a comeback in the realm of faith, not merely as unblemished belief, but as a sophisticated manifestation of political authority. The Vatican, with its an unbought perspective spanning 2 millennia, appeared to anticipate this resurgence ahead of all others. Inside the Vatican, the Jesuits, known for their keen sense of strategy and insight, strategic interactions have emerged as the driving force behind this resurgence, not through violence or legislation, but via the impact of beliefs on learning. By integrating spiritual ideas into community education, the emergence of this new aspect of spiritual authority was most evident in Latin America, where Jesuit priests have transitioned from merely delivering sermons to actively participating in land reform and championing the rights of indigenous communities. Rights and engaging in conversations with leftist movements indicate that religion is losing its prominence. Beyond the realm of politics, it returns as a familiar figure donning a fresh appearance, embodying intellect, established with a focus on humanitarian efforts and strategic initiatives in Africa by the Jesuits. Educational institutions are cultivating a fresh wave of leaders prepared to embrace responsibility. Global citizens, a lovely expression, yet underneath it rests a profound connection to Catholicism, an analytical perspective that influences the way these upcoming leaders perceive their surroundings. The dynamics of authority and fairness in the Asian context, particularly in the southern region of the Philippines, Korea, and even Vietnam, along with humanitarian organizations and social media platforms, anchored in Jesuit connections, are subtly guiding political conversations. They don't disseminate propaganda, yet they do influence principles. And even in the Western world, or era, where Catholicism was previously regarded as obsolete, faith is being revisited, not for its ceremonies, but for the deeper connection it offers, establishing a sense of connection in a fragmented contemporary society. The youth are returning to places of worship not out of sentimentality, but because they are in search of something stable in a time of ethical uncertainty. The complexities of relativism and the challenges of identity in contemporary political landscapes are increasingly significant. Echoes the medieval framework, devoid of crowned popes. It's more nuanced, and it may be even more perilous, as it doesn't require taking control. It merely needs to sway those who are already in positions of authority. Possess it. And in that game, the Jesuits find themselves once more at a pivotal junction of principles and governance intertwined with a worldwide connection, enduring wisdom, and the capacity to influence deeply. At every tier of society, there's no requirement for flags or armies. What they truly need is the vigor of youth. Individuals who think they are making a positive impact on the world, yet remain unaware of who determines the meaning of improvement in a political context. Faith has not re-emerged with a loud fanfare. It has subtly woven itself back into the fabric of our lives. Educational spaces, gatherings online, networks, environmental regulations, international discussions, and humanitarian foundations. Much like a gentle breeze, return to in the heart of the Vatican, a white pope speaks on the importance of climate justice alongside a black. The pope quietly outlines a vision for the future, guiding us along a path of spiritual growth. Awake with volumes, every leaf unfolded a narrative, a chronology, a distinguished character meticulously arranged, examined and endorsed by authoritative committees. Yet precisely for that reason, what's absent from the textbook frequently holds greater significance. As authentic narratives delve deeper, more ominous and occasionally perilous aspects seldom align with what is allowed to be educated. And if there's a single name that surfaces only subtly, if at all, in those textbooks, highlight the Jesuits, who played a significant role for almost 5 centuries. The Jesuits have been a notable presence in the realms of education, politics, and religion, yet they often remain overlooked, delved into with significant detail in educational programs. The reasons behind this may be worth considering, due to the intricate nature of their impact, or maybe because their subtle strength doesn't align with a brief session. Yet the true explanation could be more straightforward. They prefer not to have students inquiring excessively. There are inquiries here that often go unnoticed, such as the fact that numerous influential dictators throughout history received their education from Jesuit institutions, a detail rarely covered in textbooks. It is common for wealthy individuals around the world to provide financial support to Jesuit institutions, often without a specific curriculum in place, shows that international gatherings concerning financial technology and spirituality continue to subtly engage. Textbooks from Jesuit observers or advisors do not indicate that during the colonial period, the Jesuits played the role of connections between European courts and indigenous cultures were merely by relying on understanding, utilizing charts, and occasionally engaging in thoughtful discussions. They didn't merely share, they documented, they examined, and they retained no one. Many theories surrounding the Vatican involve banks and post-war migration. Media networks frequently showcase at least one individual who has received a Jesuit education. They don't have to occupy prestigious positions. They simply need to be present in the right place at the right time. We often learn about the world wars in school, yet the contributions of Jesuit priests are seldom discussed. Struggles for autonomy, or in rebuilding societies after conflict, or in safeguarding confidential information, evade connections linked to Nazi Germany, the ones now referred to as Operation, the paperclip, or the rates that conventional narratives celebrate scientific advancement as a victory of contemporary logic often overlooks the contributions of numerous pivotal minds, including physicists and others. Thinkers from Descartes to Teilhard de Chardin were influenced by the ideas of the Jesuits. This indicates that their thinking wasn't limited to scientific reasoning. They also engaged in a broader contemplation, an intricate philosophical structure that modern learners are often not introduced to. It's important to acknowledge that these concepts can indeed be imparted, but once they are absorbed by learners, one may begin to ponder the authors of the textbooks, the individuals responsible for selecting the chapters, and those who grant approval for the knowledge presented, what is recognized as official, and what truths are suppressed, are the exact inquiries that institutions prefer students to overlook. We learn to view Galileo as a representation of the conflict between scientific inquiry and religious authority. However, it is not widely known that it was the Jesuit scholars who first offered him protection, along with the priests in the Vatican. Observatories were not filled with the uninformed individuals we frequently envision, and that the conflict, the relationship between faith and empirical inquiry, was much more intricate than we had been taught. Trust, for as an ancient Jesuit document once expressed, understanding devoid of guidance can be a double-edged sword. Yet when it is applied thoughtfully, it transforms into an invaluable instrument for shaping outcomes. The world reveals that what lies beyond the pages of textbooks is frequently the most intriguing, an essential aspect to explore from the Middle Ages through to the modern era is the influence of faith, constantly displaying dual aspects, one divine directed towards the divine, and the other worldly facing outward. Authority, and when an establishment embodies both belief and the regulation of knowledge, affluent individuals and their tactics often lead one to ponder the boundary that separates conviction from authority, and the observers of that boundary concerning the Jesuits, a faction that has been removed from further involvement. Over 80 nations, yet it continues to thrive, expanding and rooting itself even Amidst the intricate dynamics of global power, that inquiry becomes more pronounced as they advocate modesty while functioning with extraordinary strength. They engage in daily prayers while managing numerous academic institutions, countless research facilities, and an informal network of intelligence extending across the continents. We are often led to believe that faith serves as a sanctuary for the spirit. Yet, when belief systems exert control over human experiences, the narrative shifts dramatically. The intellect shapes governance and encompasses a wide range of expertise. It does not. Extending simply preserves it, molds the past, and that's where the distinction starts to fade. When a leading figure can sway academic institutions globally, from Georgetown in the United States to Sophia in Japan to Camillus in Spain, where those institutions cultivate future leaders, is the role of ministers and CEOs focused on mission work or strategy. When Jesuit priests participate in advisory boards at the United Nations regarding humanitarian matters and climate change, are education and environmental policy truly fulfilling a higher purpose, or are they drifting away from their intended mission, the guiding forces of the world? And when the Jesuits refrain from public engagement, the workplace yet continues to provide guidance to the Vatican, global governments, and even multinational entities. The influence of financial corporations is a hidden force that truly shapes our world, yet few are aware of it. The classic Jesuit pledge encompasses a commitment to unwavering loyalty to the Pope, even in ambiguous situations. And yet, strangely no, a certain religious order has had more conflicts with the Vatican than the Jesuits. They were dissolved in 17, only to be reinstated later. In 1810, with each return, they emerged more resilient, prompting a more profound reflection. Can belief maintain its integrity when it is used as a means to uphold power? Can authority maintain its sanctity when it depends on quiet, unmonitored connections like those of the Jesuits? They exist beyond the realm of demons, yet they are not simply angels. They represent a worldwide organization constructed on conviction, honed by knowledge, and operated with elegance. Tactical apparatus in a time when influence is dispersed throughout innovation. The Jesuits find themselves at the intersection of religion, finance, AI, and emerging ideologies. At the intersection of it all, the inquiry shifts from whether they possess power to who actually holds it, mechanisms that drive, and, more crucially, can anyone when a group carries. The intersection of belief and authority has transformed, creating a complex journey rather than a direct route, but a maze. And within that maze, many wander through the world, moving ahead, oblivious to the one guiding them. Each great civilization has its ruler. Every belief system has its guiding figure, and every framework has its creator. Yet in the present day, a realm where spirituality, economics, innovation, and scholarship intertwine to create something entirely new, the essence of authority raises a chilling inquiry. Who is genuinely in control? We observe figures like presidents, CEOs, and religious leaders on our screens, yet are they truly at the heart of authority, or merely the visible figures representing something more profound and ancient, much quieter? Hidden away in the Vatican, there exist doors that are not intended for public access. At the pinnacle of academia, there exist theories that remain unspoken, lingering in the shadows of scholarly discourse, the core of contemporary times where information, faiths, and aspirations are shaped and influenced each day. A soft inquiry lingers in the air. Do we truly understand who makes the choices in mapping the narrative of the Jesuits? From their severe commitments and covert power to their revival after exile, in the intricate tapestry of learning and governance, a singular truth has emerged with clarity. They never vanished. Instead, they evolved, concealed themselves in the open, and at times, they took a stand. At the heart of it all, ceremonies unfold without ever inscribing their identities. They've been referred to as divine warriors. Yet maybe they are the subtle designers of a realm untouched by conflict, free from the clamor of strife, where contemplation reigns supreme, the framework and the ability to persuade a whole era of decision-makers that they are striving for fairness without ever questioning who determines that fairness. The term Black Pope is an unofficial designation that does not appear in any religious constitution, whispered with quiet respect. He is not chosen through a popular ballot, yet his impact extends further than that of numerous leaders. When an individual requires no audience, absence of promotion, lack of online engagement, yet continues to influence the course of worldwide affairs, knowledge of media ethics and humanitarian policy may indeed grant him significant influence. You might go through your whole life without ever encountering his name. Yet if you've been educated in a Jesuit institution, you've been influenced by the principles of Catholic social teaching, reflect a commitment to a vision of a fair and perfect society from that time. Perhaps you've already sensed his murmur. Not a proclamation that asserts govern, but one that softly inquires, are you certain that you are the one making the choice? In a realm overflowing with information, yet deprived of genuine understanding, abundant in belief, yet short on direction, the response fades into the background, leaving only the inquiry, softly lingering, unyielding, published in an academic book, who genuinely governs the realm we inhabit, and evokes deeper reflections. Yet, when did our beliefs transform into their instrument? We have reached the conclusion of our exploration into the enigmatic world of the Jesuits, the Vatican, a realm shrouded in mystery, where an unseen throne resides in the shadows, a domain devoid of a crown yet rich in significance, the ability to reshape the past without causing any harm. If you discovered this voyage intriguing, and you wish to continue delving into the concealed aspects of the past, the hidden enigmas, the tales that were never intended to be shared, then remember to consider joining Bedtime History. It's a simple step that can open up new possibilities, more profound, distant, and occasionally perilous tales